What is the best amplifier for you? That is the question I've been asking myself for the past 2 months. And guys, I gotta tell you, this has been a rabbit hole like none other. This has been a much deeper journey than I thought it would be. And I've tried just about every amplifier I could get my hands on at Guitar Center. I played them in person. I brought some of them home. I've returned some of them. I've traded them, bought them, sold them. Guys, I've been trying at least a dozen different amplifiers. I'm going to talk about 9 of them in this video. I'm going to try to just kind of move through them, give you my thoughts on them. I'm just a guy who plays at home, and I live in an apartment, so volume is an issue and space is an issue. I've been looking for something I could use at home that's not going to bother my neighbors, but it's still going to sound good. I tried all these amplifiers. I'm going to tell you my thoughts on them. The best amplifier I tried out of the dozen that I tried is this Fender 68 Custom VI Champ Reverb. It's a 5-watt amplifier with a 10-inch speaker. Guys, I gotta tell you, this is an incredible amp. You really gotta hear it to believe it and to understand how mesmerizing clean tones can be. Fender is known for clean tones. And if you're like me, you might be thinking, well, I don't play clean tones. I need a lot of distortion and fuzz and gain. I totally get that. This is not really that kind of amplifier. But when you play through this amplifier, it kind of takes you places in your mind. It's a very pleasant amplifier. It might change your mind on clean tone amps. And of course, you can throw a dirt pedal on here. Kurt Cobain played Fender amplifiers. I think he played a deluxe reverb and a Fender Bassman. He liked Fender amplifiers, and he'd just throw a DS1 on the front of it. He'd throw a stomp box, and he'd get distortion out of it. So you can get distortion out of these amps. I have not tried that yet myself, but people say it takes pedals very well. But I found that just playing it through the clean channel, that's the only channel it has, is just a really amazing experience. It does have what they call vibrato, but it's actually tremolo, meaning that it's changing the volume, and it has reverb, and it has 2 inputs here. So the second input acts as an attenuator. So you can get usable tones out of it. It's still not really ideal for an apartment. It can get loud. This amp is just something kind of special. It's real small, and it's the kind of thing that you can grab and go with. So if you have a chance to play this amplifier, I highly recommend it. The next one that I really liked is this Orange Rocker 15. Now we're going to the other side of the spectrum. This is a high gain amp, but it's not like a Marshall. Orange is a different kind of sound. And I guess that's the other thing I found out is all these amps have a different voice to them. And it's really going to change the way you play guitar and the way you sound. So if you just happen to buy an amp because you think it looks cool or whatever, you might not be getting the sound that you thought you were going to get out of it. But the Orange has a clean channel and a dirty channel. I did not really like the clean channel. I found it just kind of very flat, and especially when you're coming from the Fender, that has a lot of sparkle and chime to it. The Orange clean channel is very lifeless and flat and dull sounding, but most people aren't buying an Orange for the clean channel. They're buying it for the gain channel, and that's where this amp really shines. It almost has a fuzz quality to it, whereas with the Marshall is more of a distortion sound. The Orange is more of a fuzzy kind of sound, and it does have the open case back. The Fender does too. That's a big part of these amplifiers. I found out that I much prefer the sound of an open caseback to a closed caseback. The open caseback just gives it more resonance. The closed caseback will make it sound very boxy. I just found it didn't help the sound of the amplifier much. In fact, I tried the head version of this with a cab, and I did not like the sound of it, even though it's the same amp. Just because the cab was closed, I found it gave it a very directional kind of sound, whereas with the open caseback, it's more of a 360. It brings the room into the sound of the amp, which I found pleasant for me. But if we look at the controls here, very simple. And there's more controls on the, you can't see it, but they're actually underneath the amplifier here, which was kind of interesting. So there's a built-in attenuator here that can take it from 15 watts to 7 watts to 1 watt. And it actually sounded pretty good on the 1 watt mode. This is a pretty versatile amp. Now, the downside to it is this is a really big amp. And I know it doesn't look that way in these pictures, but in person, this is a pretty good sized amp. And it's very heavy. So for me, it's kind of expensive at about $1,000. So for me, I just knew I wasn't really going to be using this amp enough to justify having it in my apartment. And I didn't really feel like just having it sitting in a storage unit either. So unfortunately, I did take this amplifier back. I did buy it and intended to keep it because I like the sound of it so much, but I ended up taking it back just because a little bit too big and just too big, to be honest with you. What I've ended up going with are the emulators or the sim pedals, and I'll talk about that in a different video. Right now, I'm just talking about the different amplifiers. But I will recommend this amp. If you are looking for that fuzzy kind of sound, that's a very good amp. I might even buy it again, who knows. Now, this is another good amp here. I'm kind of going in order. The Marshall is on par with the Orange. It's a different sound, again. And on this is a 2-channel amplifier. This is a 20 watt. And the clean channel on here, it's very versatile. In fact, most artists are using a Marshall. Let's be clear on that. I think more artists are using a Marshall than any other kind of amp. And for good reason. It's just so versatile. The clean channel on here, not as good as the Fender, but much better than the Orange. It's still kind of chimey and clear and resonant, and it takes pedals very well. So the Marshall, this is a great amp. And then when you go to the ultra gain side, the distortion side, it's a much different sound than the Orange. This is more crunchy, more distortion, it's a tighter sound. The Orange is more 60s, psychedelic, kind of fuzzy. This is more 80s, hair metal bands, Metallica kind of sound. It's a much crunchier, tighter sound, which is really not what I'm into. I much prefer the fuzzy kind of sound. But this is a really good amp, and I found that if you just kind of give it just a touch of gain, you can get some nice, gritty, kind of an overdrive sound without going into full distortion. This is switchable. You can get 10 watt mode out of this. It's still going to be extremely loud, and this is also a big amp. In fact, this is the biggest tried. And this one I do own. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it though, but I felt like having at least one amp, a real amp, just in case I ever wanted to play with a band or anything like that. Who knows? Right now, that's not in the picture, but maybe it will be one day. And this is an amp that could hang with a band. The Orange could hang with a band also, but the Vibro Champ, I don't think this is going to hang with a band. I don't think it's going to be that big and loud. Now, if you're playing like in a jazz band or something like that, sure. But if you're playing in a rock band, this probably isn't going to be big enough. The Orange, I think, would definitely be big enough, and this Marshall would absolutely be big enough. This thing is a monster. It is extremely loud. The Orange is extremely loud, too. Again, open case back, and just a very good amp, but just a little bit too big and loud for my needs. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with that one yet. But it does have a little brother, the DSL5, and you're thinking, well, why not just go with that? And I tried this amp too. And I got to tell you, this is a pretty good amp. And I'm really torn between which one, because I'm saying, well, why not just go with the DSL5? You might want to go that route. This is a good amp for home. It's still going to be too loud for an apartment, but you're starting to lose some features with this amp. For one thing, I started learning a lot about the tubes in these amps. And the DSL20 has, I believe they're EL34 power tubes. They all have the same preamp section. There's like three, I don't know, something like a 12 AX, something like that. But the DSL5 has not a real power amp section. It's kind of a toned down version. It's got one tube in there, and it's not a real power amp. I can't speak extensively on this because I'm kind of just learning about all this stuff myself. Who cares? It still sounds pretty good. But it's not a real amplifier in the same sense as these. If you're looking at the power amp section of it, maybe who cares even what's under the hood if it sounds good? I get that. This is still a pretty good amp, but it's smaller than the 20 and much more manageable volume. And it does have a low watt mode, but I found that kind of really killed the tone of it, and it just basically wasn't even fun to play at that point. So you'd probably still need an attenuator with this. Now, they also have a 1 watt version, and this is a really fun sized amp. This is the smallest of any of them, and it still sounded pretty good. But again, in the power amp section, they're using a preamp tube in the power amp section. And again, maybe that doesn't matter, because who cares, right? What's under the hood, as long as it sounds good. I totally get that. You don't have a presence or a resonance control. Maybe that doesn't matter to you. And this amp is very manageable. It's still, if I'm being honest, a little bit too loud, but definitely more in the ballpark of what you could play in an apartment. I'm actually, I kind of go back and forth and thinking maybe I need to trade in my 20 watt for this 1 watt. I don't know, might do that. Now, this amp is not going to hang with a band. I don't even think this 5 watt amp could hang with a band. That's just not going to be enough power. So I'm trying to think, do I want an amp that could hang out in a real live jam or a gig or something like that? I don't know. If so, then I might as well keep this 20 watt, because this is the only one that's going to be able to do it. But this 1 watt is pretty tempting, because this I could actually use more at home. It's much more portable, much more light. Still a very good amp. So I don't know, still thinking on that. Next up, we have the Supro Delta King. And I liked this amp for a while, but when I started comparing it to other amps, it kind of lost its charm on me, because it doesn't really hit home runs with the tone. It's usually on sale. You can see it's on sale right now for $500 brand new. I want to recommend this amp, but I don't know if I can. It's a small amp. It's very portable. It has a master volume control. None of the other amps we've looked at have a master volume control. So that's a really handy feature. It has built-in reverb, built-in overdrive, and built-in boost. So you would think on paper that this is a really good amp, and if you played it, you might even think so. But it doesn't have a clean sound to it. It's not a clean tone amp. It's kind of a dirty, kind of light gain blues amp. Think, mild overdrive. And I just found it wasn't really what I was looking for. So I ended up trading this amp. I don't know if I could recommend it, although it's not a bad amp, but I just wasn't really sure how I would be using this amp. So I ended up getting rid of that. And I don't regret that. Unlike this orange rocker that I kind of regret getting rid of, because this is just a really nice amp, but this amp is just huge. This DSL-20, this amp is huge. I'm not a fan of big, heavy amps. I live in an apartment. I got to carry these things up and down the stairs. It's doable, but it's not a fun experience carrying a 50-pound amp up and down the stairs. So I'd much rather carry something like this Vibro Champ. This thing is probably under 20 pounds, probably like a 15, 20-pound amp at most. This DSL-1 kind of in that same 15-pound range. I mean, this thing is, you don't even think twice about picking it up. The DSL-5, not too bad. I think it's like 30 pounds. But these guys, the 20 and the Rocker 15, these are big boy amps. I mean, I know it's hard to see in these pictures, but these are heavy amps. They're big amps, and they're loud. So I would like to play these because they sound the best, but for my use case, they don't really fit in. Let's go ahead and talk about the Boss Katana. This is probably one of the most popular amps out there, and guys, I gotta tell you, I recommend this amp, and especially the Gen 3. They've greatly improved it over the Gen 2 model. It sounds better. This is a very versatile amp. It can do gain, it can do fuzz, it can do boost, it can do overdrive. It even has reverb and chorus and delay and all kinds of stuff built into this amp. It's very affordable. Again, this is a solid state amp, though it's not a tube amp. And it doesn't sound like a tube amp. People will greatly exaggerate when they say that this sounds just like a tube amp. It really doesn't, but among solid state amps, it's the best one out there, I'd say, for solid state. And you might as well get one. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, you could probably play in a live session with this Boss Katana. It's a 50-watt amp. It can definitely get loud. I don't think it's as loud as that DSL-20. For some reason, amps can get much louder with less wattage. So like a 15-watt tube amp is going to be much louder than a 50-watt solid-state amp. I don't really know why that is, but I guess just the nature of the tubes in there. The Boss, I might, now that I'm thinking about it, might give me a reason to get rid of that DSL-20. I'm thinking about it. This is a good amp, you know, if you're looking for something that can kind of just do everything. It's very lightweight. It's not a small amp, but it's not a big amp either. They kind of just hit the sweet spot. It's very light. In fact, here's a good picture. You can see how big it is. There you go. I mean, it's about the size of a suitcase, right? A small suitcase at that. It's very lightweight, probably like 20 pounds. Very portable. It's got an open back. It sounds good enough. It has switchable power modes. You can do a lot with this amp. Everyone pretty much recommends you get this as your first amp because it's going to cover a lot of bases. The competitor to that would be the Orange Crush, the 35RT here. I wanted to like it, but I can't really recommend it. It's a different kind of amp though. It's an analog amp. It's very affordable too, so if you want to try one, you might like it. This is not a digital amp, it's an analog amp, it's solid state, but this does not have different models built into it. It just is what it is. It's just an old school solid state analog amp. It's not the worst amp in the world. It's okay for what it is. I would say go ahead and try it. You might like it. It doesn't sound like a tube amp, nowhere close to a tube amp, but it can get very loud and, you know, good enough for the price point. I guess the last one I'll talk about here, because we are at 20 minutes, this Yamaha THR10II. This is a really good amp, and this one is kind of under the radar. Not many people looking at this. Now, this, you cannot play this with a band, but you can play this at home. And if I had to choose between the Boss Katana, the 35RT, or this Yamaha THR10II, I'd get this one. This one sounds the most tube-like, very versatile, very small, and you can see right here, I mean, this thing is tiny, but a great sound, very versatile. It can get loud, it can play quiet. That's a great amp for playing at home. Guys, I'm going to cut it off there. I've been speaking for 20 minutes. I don't know if this video was helpful for anybody. I'll just see how many views it gets, and that will determine if I make another video like this. You let me know in the comment section if these kind of videos are helpful to you or if this is just a complete waste of everybody's time. I would like to know. If it's a waste of time, then I'd rather just be playing guitar right now than just talking about all this. But it kind of helps me process what I've been doing for the past 2 months, is just going through all these different kind of amplifiers. I've played more than these. These are just kind of the highlights of it. And again, I could talk about this for hours. We could talk about speakers. We could talk about ohms, wattage, impedance. We could talk about all the different brands, all the different voices, all the different use cases. Best home amp, I'm going to say this Yamaha THR10II. That's a really good amp. I really like this Fender Vibro Champ. This one, really good. Boss Katana is what it is. Pretty good amp. Hope that was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you like this kind of video.